merchant of death? This question has plagued historians and political analysts for centuries. The term merchant of death has been used to describe individuals or companies who profit from the sale of weapons and military equipment, often to governments or armed groups involved in conflicts. These merchants of death have been accused of fueling violence and profiting from the suffering of others. Viktor Bout is a former Soviet military officer turned international arms dealer. He is widely known for his extensive network of arms trafficking, which has earned him the nickname Merchant of Death. But why is Viktor Bout so feared? First and foremost, Bout's reputation as a skilled arms dealer has made him a go-to source for weapons for various criminal organizations and conflict-affected regions around the world. He has been linked to arms shipments to various conflict zones, including Angola, Sierra Leone, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, among others. But it's not just his access to weapons that makes Bout so feared. He is also known for his ruthless and cunning business tactics. He has been known to use front companies, shell corporations, and complex web of intermediaries to conceal his involvement in arms shipments. This has made it difficult for authorities to track his movements and disrupt his operations. Bout's vast network of contacts and connections has also contributed to his fear factor. He is said to have connections with various governments, intelligence agencies, and militaries around the world, which has allowed him to operate with relative impunity. But perhaps the biggest reason why Viktor Bout is feared is the sheer scale of his operations. He is believed to have trafficked hundreds of millions of dollars worth of arms and military equipment over the years, making him one of the most successful arms dealers in history. His vast wealth and resources have also allowed him to evade capture and prosecution for years. In addition to his arms trafficking, Bout is also feared for his alleged involvement in various other illicit activities, such as money laundering and drug trafficking. His criminal empire is believed to extend far beyond arms trafficking, which only adds to his reputation as a feared and dangerous figure. In conclusion, Viktor Bout is feared for his extensive network of arms trafficking, ruthless business tactics, vast network of connections, and involvement in various other illicit activities. His wealth and resources have allowed him to operate with relative impunity for years, making him one of the most successful and feared arms dealers in history. One of the most infamous merchants of death in history was Sir Basil Zaroff, a British businessman who operated in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Zaroff was known for selling weapons to both sides of conflicts, often without regard for the consequences of his actions. He was rumored to have been involved in numerous arms deals with countries around the world, including Germany, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. Another infamous merchant of death was the American arms manufacturer, Samuel Colt. Colt was the founder of the Colt Firearms Company, which produced a variety of weapons including revolvers, rifles, and machine guns. Colt's weapons were used in numerous conflicts around the world, including the American Civil War, the Spanish-American War, and the First World War. In modern times, the arms industry has become even more lucrative and expansive. Many large corporations, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman, are involved in the production and sale of weapons and military equipment. These companies often receive contracts from governments around the world, including the United States, to supply weapons for their military forces. However, the role of these companies in fueling conflicts and profiting from violence has been highly controversial. Critics argue that they prioritize profits over human lives and contribute to the suffering of innocent people caught in the crossfire of conflicts. But it's not just major corporations that are considered merchants of death. There are also smaller, less well-known companies that have been accused of operating in the shadows of the arms industry. These companies, often referred to as mercenary arms dealers, operate outside of the law and often sell weapons to governments or armed groups that are involved in illegal or unethical activities. One example of a mercenary arms dealer is the Russian company, Rosoboronexport, which has been accused of selling weapons to regimes with poor human rights records, including Syria and Sudan. Another example is the Israeli company, Elbit Systems, which has been criticized for selling weapons to the Israeli military, which has been accused of committing human rights abuses against Palestinian civilians. The role of merchants of death in fueling conflicts and profiting from violence is a complex and controversial issue. While they argue that they are simply providing necessary equipment for the defense of their countries, critics argue that their actions contribute to the suffering of innocent people and perpetuate a cycle of violence and conflict. The question of who is the merchant of death is one that may never fully be answered, but it is clear that those who profit from the sale of weapons and military equipment must be held accountable for the consequences of their actions. As the news broke that Victor Bout, the infamous international arms dealer, had been released from prison, the reactions were mixed. Some hailed it as a victory for justice, while others feared the potential consequences of his freedom. Upon his release, Bout immediately returned to his native Russia, where he was greeted by a crowd of supporters and reporters. In a press conference, Bout declared that he had been wrongly convicted and that he had always acted within the bounds of international law. However, not everyone was convinced by Bout's claims. Many pointed to the mountain of evidence against him, including taped conversations in which he discussed the sale of weapons to terrorist groups and dictatorships. Some even speculated that his release was the result of a secret deal between the Russian government and the United States. Regardless of the circumstances of his release, the question on everyone's mind was what Bout would do now that he was a free man. Some feared that he would resume his illicit arms dealing, potentially destabilizing conflict zones around the world. Others speculated that he would use his connections and expertise to become a legitimate businessman. As the days went on, it became clear that Bout was indeed planning to return to the world of international trade. He quickly set up a new company, specializing in the export of Russian military equipment and technology. While some praised his business acumen, others warned that this could lead to the proliferation of dangerous weapons and technology. In addition to his business ventures, Bout also became a vocal critic of Western sanctions against Russia. He frequently appeared on Russian news programs, lambasting the United States and Europe for what he saw as unfair treatment of his country.